on the different platforms will be new. Yes? They'll be new. You got one type of market on LinkedIn, which is more corporate and business. You've got another type on Facebook who likes to tell you how many times they go to the bathroom, right? They tell you every little thing, show you what they're eating, tell you how fat and how skinny they are, right? They're telling you everything about their personal lives. It's a little more fun, a little more laid back, but you still can do a lot of business on Facebook, yes? So, what else? Twitter. Short little tweets, just real quick little snippets of information that you're sharing, right? You got to be able to say what you want to say in 140 characters, but others will tell you, make it even less characters so that people can retweet you and put other handles on there, right?
Aren't they opening up the characters now? Have they done that yet? They're supposed to put like unlimited or some kind of a big amount now.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But right now, Twitter is still at 140 characters.
Yeah, it's about to change.
Yeah, well, it could, but then that changes Twitter.
No,
right?
they've already put it in place because it's just Google it is.
Okay, so there's so many different platforms. You've got YouTube for videos. You've got all sorts of different platforms.
Yeah.
There's different audiences on each, and yes, there's some crossover. Okay, so another way to really get a worldwide audience, and who here has a product or service that you could sell to anybody, anywhere in the world? Okay, quite a few of you, right? So do you think it would be beneficial to do a podcast where anyone in the world would hear your podcast? They could sign up to join your list. You could communicate with them on a regular basis and potentially have people buying from you while you're sleeping and they're awake, but it's not nighttime for them. People on the other side of the world could be buying from you even when you sleep. Does that sound cool or what? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So why would you want to have a podcast? Why wouldn't you want to have a podcast if you can reach people everywhere and have them potentially buy from you? Right? What would you do on your podcast? What could you do? Anybody know what a podcast is?
Yeah.
Richard?
It's a situation where you have like your own channel, shall we say,
Yes.
on the internet, and you can share on your subject. Like I do speed reading, I do memory, self-hypnosis, and that's enough for probably 6 months.
Definitely.
Talking, sharing, and then they can sign up for a course.
Okay, and that's just you talking,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What else could you do on your podcast?
I could bring in YouTube stuff and
Okay.
upload that.
You can interview
I
people.
can interview people.
You can bring guests on your show,
Yeah.
as these ladies are saying over here. Great. You could do so many things with a podcast. You can do short clips, you can do longer clips. But where can people hear your podcast? Like, when would they be listening to your podcast?
On the drive.
They can listen to it in the car. They can listen to it when they're working out. Who here listens to music or something educational when they work out?
Music.
Okay, first question, who works out?
In the car. Let's say in the car.
Okay, so anywhere that you listen to something, if you like to work and listen to music, you could have a podcast running. Okay, so anywhere you listen to anything, you could be listening to a podcast. Podcasts go through iTunes. Who owns iTunes? Apple. Who wants to partner with Apple?
I do.
I do. Okay, so how could you partner with Apple for free? Have a podcast on iTunes and start building it. We have Sam Crowley, who comes up here and speaks for us at some of our events. He has hundreds of thousands of listeners. He has over 1 million people listening to his podcasts. We have Scott Patton, who's a guru in podcasting from BC, who comes in to teach us reverse marketing, but he has 250,000 subscribers on his podcast, and he hasn't created one in like 10 years. A new one, Scott Patton, okay? So still has an incredible following of people who are still downloading podcasts. They last forever. Forever, okay? So how would you like to continually have people coming to you over and over and over again, even if you're not even producing anything? People are hungry for information. So who here has ever thought about doing a podcast? Jennifer, what would it be on?
Oh, you know.
Is that the top?
Well, I think mine will be on faith.
On faith.
Faith,
Okay,
for sure.
perfect.
And maybe essential oils of the ancient scriptures.
There you go. Perfect. And yours would be on what?
I didn't have an idea. It's just like I would use podcasting like as a tool to market like my website or like what I'm doing.
Definitely. And tell me quickly, what's your business?
Nothing really right now. I'm a
Trying to
student.
figure it out.
You're searching?
Yeah.
Okay. Figuring out, that's okay. Who else would do a podcast? Okay, what would you do?
Mindset and business.
Mindset and business.
Yeah.
Excellent tools, right? Excellent tools. Ernest,
Management in the real world.
management in the real world. Okay, perfect. So you're all picking on different niches to talk about who do you think might be interested in listening to your information? There's lots of people out there who'd be wanting to listen to your information. Produce a podcast. It's really easy to do. Who here already has an Apple iTunes account? Or an Apple ID?
I have it just.
Okay, so most of you do already anyway, right? And it's so easy to set one up. Remember, I'm going to email this to you guys so you don't have to go crazy trying to write it all down. This is what the page looks like when you go to apply. Really simple, easy. Pick your password, basically. You've got an account, they send you an email. Now, when you go to log in, you have to put iTunes on your computer. Who here does not use Apple? I don't either. I don't either. But I have iTunes on my computer. If it ever opens again. But I have iTunes on my computer. I can download it onto my computer. And then I can log into it with the Apple ID that I just created. So now I get into my my Apple. You see these 3 little dots right there?
Yeah.
See them? When you click on those, it gives you a drop down where you get to see a little menu of things that you might have on your computer. You go into the podcast section, and then you can, so I searched for me, see in the search bar right up there? I put my name, my podcast came up with some of the episodes there. And you want to name your episodes when you create a podcast. You want to make sure you actually put a name to them, because what happens is if I call every one of my podcasts Randy Goodman, Randy Goodman, Randy Goodman, nobody will know which podcast they want to listen to. So I tend to name them. I put the person's name and I'll kind of give a couple words on what they're talking about, right? And you can do it your own way, but definitely put in there somehow that, you know, a little bit of what you're talking about, so that I don't have to go fishing through, because people aren't going to do it. They're not going to click every podcast that you have to see whether they want to listen to it or not. Do you agree? I wouldn't do it. And you probably wouldn't do it either. People aren't going to do it. So the more information you can give them right at the beginning, the better. There's a few different places that you can host your podcast. So just like you host your website, it actually has to sit somewhere. So there's something called an RSS feed that you use, that you give to iTunes or other platforms that promote podcasts. You give them this RSS feed. That way, every time you post a new podcast, it gets put out on iTunes and the other platforms. If you're not using the RSS feed, there's nothing connecting them. So that's what connects them. So there's My Podcast World, which we're launching very soon, which will only be $99 a year. Now I tell you this because, and we're very lucky to be able to offer this, Blueberry, Libsyn, great platforms. They start at $12 a month. But as you increase your bandwidth, which means what? Anybody? Bandwidth?
More people.
So the
More
more
people are
space you
accessing.
use, okay, so the longer your audio is, even if you do some video podcasts, take up a lot of space, okay? Take up a lot of data. They're using the data on their servers. They charge you for the space that you're using, okay? So the more space you use, right now I'm over $80 with Blueberry a month, okay? It'll go even higher when I keep adding and adding and adding. So I have almost 90 podcasts now. And it starts to hike up there. It starts to get expensive. So we're lucky that we have the opportunity through My Podcast World to be able to offer you guys a really inexpensive rate for hosting your podcast, and that should be ready soon.
Will people be able to find you on that as well as they can on iTunes, or it's a different platform?
This is a hosting, so it's different. So the hosting does not put it anywhere, doesn't put the podcast anywhere. The hosting just literally hosts it. So you have a bookshelf,
Mm-hmm.
you put your books on the bookshelf,
Mm-hmm.
and they sit there. They're basically hosting your books until you decide, oh, I'd like to read this one, okay? The RSS feed tells iTunes you want to read this one, right? And it puts it out there so that anybody can listen to it. So iTunes isn't hosting it because it's not actually holding the book, right? It's just promoting the book, so it's marketing it through a link. So people click the link and it takes them back to where the
Right.
podcast is being hosted or the book's being held,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So we have that option.
You're gonna
We
need,
talk about podcasts, we talk about sharing information, we talk about putting landing pages, lead pages together, capturing email addresses, all these different things that we're doing to market our business. Who here either has a course right now that you teach or have a course in your head that you're thinking about teaching? Okay, so quite a few, right? So we have these courses that we want to teach or we are teaching, and now